What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm sitting here with Cameron Selby, and we're going to be going over the Thursday night football game between the Rams and the 49ers in San Francisco. The total is 49 right now, and the San Francisco 49ers are actually a minus 2.5 favorite. I think that's interesting because of the fact that the 49ers do have so many injuries, while the Rams have already beat them earlier in the year by 3 when they were the ones with all the injuries. So I thought that was an interesting spread.
Yeah, I mean, I'm completely on board with you. I think this is a true pick 'em, if not slightly to the Rams side because of how they are playing their best ball right now. San Francisco absolutely decimated with injuries. We saw both running backs go down a couple weeks ago. Maybe their third running back is out. We'll be talking about that in a little bit, but Nick Bosa also injured, Trent Williams, several other key hogs on that team while the Rams are getting healthy at the right time, and that's why when we did our power rankings, they were the top of the division despite not being record-wise the top because we think they're trending in the right way at the right time. And like you said, the Rams were decimated in week 3 when these two teams played. They were 6-point dog at home. That was the first game without Puka and Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
They were also down 5 or 6 offensive linemen, and they still found a way to pull it out. So a lot of fun. Maybe it's just a ode to Kyle Shanahan. His head-to-head record against Sean McVay is actually 10-5.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
In their 15 matchups throughout the regular season and the playoffs so far. So it's going to be a really, really fun slate for sure.
Yeah, let's pull it up. Let's start talking about it. We'll start on the Rams side because the Rams are the away team this week. We'll start with the Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, main guys on this team. Let's just put all three of them in there. Those are the three guys. They're going to be 80% plus of this offense, touch-wise. Talking about Puka, who had the week last week, and we missed out a little bit on it. We did have him in afternoon, but did not have him in main or early only. 12 for 162 and a touchdown receiving, and then also 5 attempts rushing, which is a ton with a touchdown. 44.8 points. He's just got all the ceiling games, and he has one of the best floors in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he's proving why he was a first-round pick early in best ball season. He's only had 4 touchdowns this year, but all of them have come in the last 4 games. He's really hitting his stride at the right time. You know, his first game back, having a ton of targets. He had 100 yards in his limited size, and we were, teasing our buddy because he didn't want to start him. And it's just like, if you have Puka,
if you drafted him,
you got to play him. And so he comes right out the gate doing that. Then he's got a 14-target game and 9 where he goes for 123, 13 targets, 14, 18, or 8. And he's the clear wide receiver 1 now on this roster, but that doesn't mean that he's the only one that's eating.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp, he has had 3 of the last 4 games where he's hit 20 points. He's also had 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games. Basically, this is really the first sample size this season where both are playing together and healthy.
Yeah.
Because it did take a couple weeks after both returned for them to really, truly get back to form. And it's really showing. They're playing really well. Buffalo's one of the hottest teams in football, and they dropped 44 on them. And, very, very impressive win. And Matthew Stafford is also playing his best ball as a result.
Yeah, in week 10, which you can see up there on the board, was the first week that both of them had 79% plus of the snaps. That was 79 for Puka and 90 for Cooper Kupp. And since then, it's just kind of smooth sailing, exactly what you'd expect. Let's talk about Kyren Williams before we get into all of the dart throw receivers otherwise on this team. Kyren had 29 rushing attempts last week, 2 touchdowns in the 44-point game. That game was absolutely ballistic, and 23.7 points. Everybody in this game is basically optimal if you can get all 3 of them. So I don't know where we're going to go, but Kyren's also an option.
Yeah, I mean, none of them can truly, you can just say, hey, this guy's going to suck.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to make an uncomfortable choice because you can't afford all 3, but then also have
And
some quality
Matthew Stafford,
49ers
too.
And Matthew Stafford, like you said, which is $9,000, which is reasonable for a quarterback. But again, it just kind of depends on how you want to structure. But yeah, Kyren also has 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games. I mean, this is just where he goes. And like you mentioned, all of the opportunities. This is why we were not high at all on Blake Corum. And this is why he was one of our few things we got right in the second round of best ball drafts because he's just been as steady as they come. He did hit a lull for a 3-4 week stretch because of his lack of passing upside. And when he's not scoring touchdowns, he's kind of an RB2. But when he's an RB1, you feel really good about rostering him.
Yeah, he did have some passing work earlier in the year, and of course Cooper Cup and Puka take away from that as you can see as the year goes on. But at the same time, like you said, Blake Corum has been a no-show. He basically has one drive a game where he gets in, he plays the whole drive, nine plays normally, and then comes out, and that's
And really
it.
quick before you do click out of his name, I want you to scroll down to his game log against San Fran because he was
Yes.
the reason that they did come back and win out of nowhere. 3 touchdowns and 32 fantasy points, which is what led the way. He had all 3 touchdowns for them, including the go ahead to take the lead. So I'm sorry, to tie it up, which
Tie it,
they
yeah,
in
exactly.
turn came to have a game-winning field goal. So yeah, he is a great option if you can get there. It just kind of you got to make some tough decisions up top.
Yeah, let's also now let's find the value because there's a lot of value on the Rams that we're not sure about yet. Something we will talk about, Demarcus Robinson. He has played 60+% of the snaps every single week this year. He is most likely out. He has he did not practice today. Today is on Tuesday. That's our most recent. So tomorrow, when this video is posted, we'll actually know if he practiced on Wednesday. But we're gonna play it as if he's not going to play. If he's out, there's a lot of guys underneath him that have not had the snaps that get the opportunity.
Yeah, there's actually 5 key injuries on this slate, and he is probably one of them that opens up the most value because Isaac Grindo's backup is already priced up because
Right.
of the anticipation he might be out. But they didn't really do the same for the wide receiver threes because obviously the majority of the volume is going with Puka and Cooper Kupp, and they're both obviously going to be playing. But we have seen the boom games from Tutu Atwell and Tyler Johnson coming out of nowhere, and Jordan Whittington, who is also questionable. So there is room for all of these guys to feast, and then also Tyler Higbee, full participant in practice both Monday and Tuesday.
Right.
Sounds like he might make his debut. That doesn't mean that, smash value, because one, he's a low volume tight end at this point in his career, but also, first game back, I would anticipate he wouldn't play more than 30% of the snaps, maybe get 3 targets.
Yeah.
And it just kind of depends on him working out. Just basically means nothing else worked out below him.
Yeah, exactly. And he at 2,200 though, that's a reasonable price. The problem is $400 more is Tutu Atwell, who is getting the run, who has been good, and I'll pull his game log up so we can look at it.
I mean, he was the one that did step up and was the safety valve when both Puka and Cooper were both out. Obviously, he had a 4 straight game sample size. The minute that they both were inactive, having 13, 12, 12, and 11, that's not going to jump off the stat sheet. But at 2,600, getting that is a massive return. And we did see Demarcus Robinson getting a decent amount of red zone looks and targets in
Right.
the last 4 or 5 weeks, even with both of those guys back. So one of these guys is going to play a ton of snaps. And if they do split it up, there's going to be 3 to 4 targets for each of these guys. And it's just who do you have the most confidence in paying off that price tag?
Yeah, and right now, if you had to pick one, who would it be?
Well, I'm gonna anticipate, like we were talking about, Demarcus Robinson being out.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Whittington, click on him. I think that he is going to be out as well. But there's no real update with the player news. But he is on a Q tag as well. And if anything, he's just going to eat into Tyler Johnson's role. But I'm really hoping he will be out because my answer would be Tyler Johnson in that note.
Okay, perfect. So Tyler Johnson, if Jordan Whittington's out, Tyler Higbee is out. You can also play Parkinson, who has been a steady player, but at 1,600, he makes a lot of sense.
And also,
it's really cheap.
Haven't found any news on it, but Davis Allen with a Q tag,
Right.
and he is dwindling down in snaps as well. So really, Colby Parkinson has been getting back to being the tight end 1 in this offense. That doesn't mean really anything from a target perspective because he's gotten no more than I think
Right.
5 targets other than a couple of games. But he's 1,600, so if Davis Allen is out and Tyler Higbee doesn't return, there's not much to really compete with other than Hunter Long and Nikola Kalinick,
Yeah, I don't
who
even.
has not played this season.
Yeah. So lots of stuff that's going to open up. We'll talk about that as we go. Going over to, of course, kickers are always in play. So look at Cardi if you want to play a Cardi. That's not a problem. He is 5,000 on this slate. But going over to the San Francisco side of the game, we've had those injuries, including Isaac Garindo, who you were talking about. But they also were without Christian McCaffrey, Jordan Mason. That's been a thing for a couple of weeks. They also don't have Brandon Ayuk, don't have Trent Williams. Offense is looking really bleak, but some options. Jawan Jennings is the most expensive receiver on the slate for the San Francisco 49ers. George Kittle, Debo, and then Ricky Pearsall, I think, is the last one that we're really going to talk about.
Yeah, and really Ricky Pearsall is just kind of dwindled in terms of role.
Yeah.
It's not like his snaps are just kind of zeroed out.
I can tell you right
for
now.
a second, but yeah, he where's he at? He
49% on that last week.
49%. So
He went
not
from
crazy.
mid-60s, though.
Yeah,
So that's
but
that's
at the same time, there was a ton of blowout, so they were just trying to run, less three receiver sets. But I don't know. He just hasn't really been getting the looks. He's had less than 3 targets in 4 straight games. He has 1 catch in that stretch. So really, 4,800. I'm not touching that.
Nope.
Obvious tournament play if you want to have some faith that he catches the long ball. He worked out for us as a 2%er before.
Yeah.
Maybe that's your vibe this time. But really, Juwan Jennings has been the biggest person and a beneficiary to step up since Brandon Ayuk went down. Obviously, chalky Juwan Jennings just works, I guess, because he had 28 points, 7 for 90, and 2 scores this past week. And then a couple weeks ago when he was a chalky out of nowhere after having just kind of okay stretches, had a 25-point game on 11 targets, 10 for 91 and a score.
Yeah.
And then also, if you wanted to scroll down to the Week 3 matchup in their first meeting, where Debo did not play, 49 points, and he was about $4,000.
Yep. And we had one line with him.
Yeah.
Just one.
Just one.
We had one of 5.
It was fun, but wish we had would have had a little bit more confidence in it. But yeah, he's really stepped up. I anticipate he'll be pretty popular because of his recent stretch of games.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean he's a must play in my eyes, actually. But he's a decent, affordable price point if you don't really have a whole lot of confidence in any of the other 49ers up top.
I just don't know that I'm not comfortable getting to him when he's 40%, 50% owned on a slate like this.
And it just
and
keeps biting.
Yeah, it keeps biting me in the butt. But sooner or later, he's got to come back down to earth because truly, I think his ceiling is extremely high, but his floor is not as good as some of the other players on this slate. Let's talk about one of those guys right now. That's George Kittle. He has been the most consistent guy by far. Targets. He catches everything, so that helps, of course. And he's Brock Purdy's safety valve. So 17.3 points. He's the number 1 tight end fantasy point wise on the year, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
overall, yes, or not overall, I don't think, but points per game, yes, he
that's
is, because
okay.
he did miss
right.
a few weeks due to kind of small minor injuries. But yeah, I mean, obviously his upside has been higher than every other person's because he's leading all tight ends in touchdowns. Hasn't had any in a couple games, but guess what? He's got a 150-yard game in his bag, and he's just really good. The one thing is, he actually doesn't have as strong of a game log history against the Rams.
Interesting.
I think he's had 4 straight games below 12 fantasy points, if I remember correctly. But he's been as safe as they come, and 8,000 I thought was just way too cheap. I mean, we keep on seeing like the Travis Kelce's when he's on Showdown slates
About
be
10.
in the 9,000 or even 10,000s. It's like he's earned that right to be that high, and yet you left him at $8,000. So even though his sample size against the Rams in general has not been strong, he's in that play. And if you're going to do any kind of 49ers passing game, it starts with George Kittle.
Agreed. Completely agree with that. And then Deebo Samuel. So they're $1,000 between the top 3 options for this team. Deebo's the cheapest. He's probably the guy you'd expect to be the most expensive when you just hear the name value. 7,600. I don't know if the name value will actually show up though in ownership, which is one thing that I always kind of worry about. Is like, oh, Debo's on the slate. If you're just a casual, you're like, hey, I want to play Debo. It doesn't matter how bad he's been this year. You just want to put Debo in your line. And so I always wonder if that's gonna drive his value or his ownership up at all.
Well, ever since we talked about how just poor he's played,
Yeah.
he has been awful.
Oh.
Just straight up awful. And it's not just from a fantasy perspective, which you can tell that he has not scored more than 7 points in a game in a month now. He just has not stepped up, and CMC's been down, and Brandon Ayuk's been down, and they're still not going to him.
Yeah.
And they're riding Isaac Guerrero and George Kittle that's banged up, and Juwan Jennings, who was wide receiver 4 off the 49ers in best ball drafts, with Ricky Pearsall and then obviously Brandon Ayuk and Debo being in front of him. He just has been a no-show. The one solace I would say is that he is really, really, really good against the Rams. He did not play this. I mentioned earlier he did not play in week 3, and then last year in week 18 he played a quarter or a possession or two
Right.
to get incentive bonuses, but he sat with the rest of the team after that because they were already clinched up. The previous 6 games, 22 fantasy points, 26, 29, 30, 27, and 18. That is a 3-year sample size of just dominating the Los Angeles Rams, and that is with rushing, with receiving, and a whole lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, that's those are some numbers. I'm glad to hear that. He is actually I was gonna go check PFF to see where he was. He's 48th out of 128 receivers this year, which I actually thought would have been a little bit lower based on his play. Ricky Pearsall on the other side is 102nd at 128, which really makes a lot of sense to me. But Jawan Jennings at 6th overall, which is pretty crazy. I think that a great tournament play here for Debo if you think his ownership will be down without his name value.
This is me saying that this is the perfect way to buy low, and if this matchup against a Rams team that just had 42 and 6 offensive touchdowns dropped against them, he can't go up against this team and have a solid day at only 7,600, then he's just never going to have it.
Fair, absolutely fair. Talking about the running backs, Isaac Guerendo, who we said is got a Q tag on his name. I don't know what the outlook is. I'd expect him to play at the moment.
You'd expect him to play. Interesting.
But I don't know. Actually, I think it's really up in the air. And you can see he was he didn't participate on Wednesday in walkthrough, but I don't know what's going to happen here because he's missed both days. I thought there was good talk though. So
well, I mean, yeah, a lot of times the Monday and Tuesday are walkthroughs or precautionary practices anyway, so it doesn't say a bunch, but when you leave a game with a foot sprain, it's really hard to tell that you're going to be back at full strength in the following
Thursday,
4 days later. But I mean, it's a pretty solid game environment for him if he is going to play. I'm just worried, even if he does play, that he's going to be limited to a 10 to 12 touches, and they just go by committee because Patrick Taylor came in his absence and immediately scored a touchdown. And 7 for 25 doesn't just jump off the paper, but he did a serviceable job. And so if he has 10 to 15 potential opportunities in a full game script, I mean, you got to put him in the player pool as well. And in the event that Isaac Guerendo does not play, I still like Patrick Taylor a lot.
Okay, fair enough. Do you like Keyshawn Vaughn also then at all?
Well, considering
an option,
because I was looking at their snap counts in comparison to Guerendo, because he had the majority of the snaps. He had 56% of the snaps, which was basically every snap
prior to him
going down. And then Patrick Taylor had 20 of the next 23.
Okay.
So because it was that big of a gap, and Keyshawn Vaughn was vaulted off the practice squad for that game and just that game, I would anticipate it would just be more so a 70-30 split, and Patrick Taylor would probably get all the important touches in terms of goal line work and maybe pass catching work. I don't know. I don't know enough of him to see his versatility as a dual threat running back.
Right,
but,
for sure.
Yeah, 7,400 usually for a potential bell cow role in a game environment that suits him is very intriguing to have a breakout game, just like Isaac Guerendo and just like Jordan Mason rather has all season.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's talk your game script and what you expect to happen for this game. I'm going to pull up Patrick Taylor's all-time career stuff just to see if there's anything that stands out to me. But
so my game script, it's funny because my initial score to this was 27-24, and then I forgot that was the exact score
of the first game.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna switch it up a little bit because there's no way that happens twice. But I said 30-27 Rams, and this is just a very tough game to call. But it's just the Rams are hitting their peak at the right time, and they're just playing a very short-handed team that's undermanned, and I just think that the last team to score essentially wins, and the Rams have been doing so well offensively against underwhelming defenses that I just have faith in their offense putting up enough points to stay ahead.
Okay. Well, I put this game at 27-14. I think that the Rams are going to go into San Francisco and beat the crap out of them, basically. The Rams are 5-2 since Buka and Cooper Kupp returned in Week 8, which, with those two guys, they've been so much better. Before that, Matthew Stafford looked like he didn't know where to go with the ball, and he was uncomfortable. Well, when those two were in the game, it fixes kind of everything. And And when they were missing them in week 3, I do want to mention. So in week 3, those were also beat up on the San Francisco side because they didn't have George Kittle, they didn't have Deebo Samuel. I don't know if Brandon Ayuk was there at that point when he had. I don't remember when he got injured, but they definitely didn't have George Kittle, Deebo.
Mm-hmm.
So that game was a little bit, pushed back with like just talent wise. But at this point, there's way more injuries on the San Francisco side. I think that kind of pushes it. And as I said, I think this is either a very close game or it's going to be a blowout by the Rams. I don't know that I think there's a in between. Like I don't think it's a one touchdown, kind of just grind it game. I think it's like big difference or very, very like last team to have the ball wins the game basically.
Gotcha.
So,
all right. Well, it looks like we're kind of on a similar boat about our fade because I did say earlier you got to make some uncomfortable decisions up top. I wrote down my fade was Cooper Kupp, and it looks like you feel a similar vibe.
I couldn't write anybody else down on the top up here, and I was like, well, Cooper Kupp is the guy that I was like, it's either you. I feel like you're kind of picking between Kyron and Cooper. Like you have to pick one, and if you're wrong, I don't know that it's going to hurt you like an insane amount. I don't think both of them could go for 35 points, whatever. But I would expect Puka Nacua to be the main guy, and so I'm going to fade Cooper Kupp and play Kyron. But if you thought the other way, it's $200 difference. You can play the other guy basically, no matter what. So
well, yeah. And then I feel really good about your must play. It came down to these two, and they're in the first two. And so again, we don't, talk about our plays and picks before we record these episodes. We kind of go on the fly and just kind of see how each other feel. And Puka Nacua is my must play, and George Kittle is your must play. And both of us had said about the other guy that you can't really avoid him on this.
Yeah. I think if Puka wasn't, so I do normally put these in after Cam. So if I see Cam has a guy that would probably be my must play, I normally just put a different person in there that I think is also a must play. George Kittle is my guy. Puka is probably going to be the highest scorer on the slate. He's also most expensive, so it correlates really well. But George Kittle is my favorite play on the San Francisco side of the ball. And if I have to play a San Francisco player, it's George Kittle. So, and then contrarian plays, I thought that these were pretty good too. Mine might turn into not being a contrarian play pretty soon, depending on injury. So that might mess things up. But mine is Tutu Atwell because I think you could play him even if Robinson is playing and him still be a solid play at 2,600.
Yeah, I mean, he's still been, he's been next guy up in terms of when Puka and Cooper Kupp are both playing. He's the guy that gets the most snaps. He obviously had 45% of the snaps this past week. Demarcus Robinson at 61, but again, he did return for the fourth quarter of the game. But Tyler Johnson way down at 21%, and then Jordan Whittington has not really had above 15 since week 5, which both of them were out for. So it's really just Tyler Johnson getting a third of what Tutu gets,
right? And
then it just kind of goes from there. So I would expect something, hypothetically, Demarcus doesn't play. I would expect Tutu to get about 65 to 70%,
right?
And then Tyler Johnson claiming up the other third.
I'm gonna also say just by numbers on RotoWire, I don't know that they're gonna be correct, obviously, and they still show that Demarcus Robinson is in. They show that Tyler Higbee will be in. So all these players, if they all played, right now Demarcus Robinson at 7.4%, Tyler Johnson at 7.2%, Tyler Higbee is 2.3%. Parkinson 2.2, Jordan Whittington 2.1, and Tutu Atwell is actually the lowest at 1.4%. So I thought that was a pretty solid tournament play if that does happen and that comes out to fruition, obviously. For yours, I'll let you go ahead and talk about yours.
Yeah, and I kind of hyped him up a little earlier, and this is straight up a vibes play. I can't say anything about his recent month and just say anything why he should go, but other than just his 6-game sample size over the last 3 years or 4 years really against this team has just been elite.
Yes.
Beyond comprehension, honestly. Being his worst game being 18 fantasy points from a PPR perspective. 7,600, nobody is going to be on him, and he's really easy to click on if you do fade one of the 10K guys because it organically fits, and you'll kind of see how I build later on when I do my first look, and I think you'll kind of enjoy the structure in which I do it because even though we do have a different game script, I think we're on the same guys,
Yeah.
which makes me feel pretty good about this slate.
And he's talking about Debo Samuel. I know he didn't actually say his name.
Oh, yes,
$7,600 Debo Samuel. I did not realize that Debo's averaged almost 25 points a game in the last 6 against this team. So that does tell you a lot. Let's hear your first look then. So let's see that
my
build.
first look is going to be a little bit of a fun thing that you can really get. It's kind of chalky, or I guess cash gamey if you do this captain. So I'll just start with the safer captain with George Kittle.
Okay. Interesting.
And then I'm going to put in both quarterbacks.
Oh, it is different.
Which I think I almost did for my tournament play, say both quarterbacks. Because I don't think that this is a slate where, even though they're both priced below 9,500, that really people are going to flock to it because Matthew Stafford doesn't really have upside from the rush upside perspective.
Yeah, of course.
And because there's so many skill players you want to get to above and below them, that it's going to be really hard to fade a ton of skill players. So that's why 2 quarterbacks is really interesting to me.
Before we go on, are we assuming that Garindo is in or out?
Out.
Okay, so Garindo's out, Robinson's out, and then Jordan Whittington would be out also. We're assuming all 3 are out?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll assume all 3 are out. That'll make my line make more sense also because that's what I did when I made it.
Okay. So yeah, just going back up, our must-play Puka Nacua is also going to be in this line. And then last 2 in, I'm going to put Deebo Samuel in my tournament play in. And that leaves just enough dollars for Mr. Tyler Johnson.
Perfect. I like it. It's really fun.
And then if you really wanted to make it really tournament-y, flipping Deebo and Kittle as the captain, I think is really interesting because it's the same 6. It's a very safe one. But Deebo, nobody's going to really – I don't think anybody will play him at captain, honestly, on this slate. So he might be a less than 3%er at captain, and we've had one earlier this year where I called him out as captain, and he had 100 yards in the second quarter after a 76-yard touchdown. Didn't do much after it, but I felt great being a less than 3%er at captain. Usually when you nail those calls, it makes you feel pretty good.
For sure. No, I like this line a lot. I actually have 2 lines, and I wanted to get your thoughts on them. So I'll start with my first one. I will be putting our must-play Puka Nacua at captain, joining him with his quarterback. I will not be playing both quarterbacks. I didn't even make a line that way. So I think that is interesting. I'm going to put Kyron in there because I am fading Cooper Kupp, but if you just wait, guys, you could literally just flip them. It's not a problem at all. George Kittle, I have $6,300 left over. I'm going to put Moody in. And then I'm going to go all the way down here to $1,000 Tyler Johnson. That is my first build, my first look. That is in, of course, with all 3 out between Jordan Whittington and Demarcus Robinson being on that team with Tyler Johnson. And I think it makes a lot of sense if that is the case.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fun. I would say that even being more different because I don't think many people will play with a underdog team a 5-1 build.
Fair. I almost did.
And doing Cardi instead of Moody would maybe be my preference because I think because of name value, he'll be the less owned kicker. He's also cheaper, gives a couple of extra remainder, and being a 5-1 build, like I said, I think less people will be on that kind of strategy on this game.
I actually think I built it that way, and then I switched it because I had the money to. And then my other build that I was going to say, this would be as if Garindo is playing. So I made one with him playing also, and that is... This guy's out. That guy's in. Sorry. Didn't even mean to pull him. Who did I forget? Oh, I pulled Kyron out. That's who I missed. And then I put Garindo in for 84. Moody back in because I didn't mean to put him. 2-2 out. Well. So that was my
That's fun.
My thoughts if Garindo is playing was to do this.
My only question really is price doesn't matter, obviously, in this line. Isaac Garindo versus Juwan Jennings. You would prefer Garindo?
Yeah. I think so if he's like full health.
Okay.
Because I like the floor. And I'm trying to stay away from a chalky Jawan Jennings again.
I'm terrified just because we typically do 3 lines for a showdown.
Yes.
And you have to play 2 out of 3 with him to be over the field because he's going to probably be about 55-60% on being under $9,000.
Right.
And the recent stretch he's had. And that just makes me very scared because it is a good matchup and it is a good spot and he has a lot of momentum. And the last time he did play them, he had 11 for 175 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So all of the logic says play him. And we're kind of fading him, which is a little scary, but maybe we'll have some kind of last minute innuendo that convinces us to either play him or just be like, nah, we're really truly gonna fade him.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable. I'm always comfortable fading the chalk. We know this. I talk about it every time I get on here. I'm fine getting away from players that, could catch a little fire in the bottle and not be really as good as the numbers that they're putting up. I think that it could be a case with him. And also George Kittle and Debo playing in this game. I think there's better chances that those two guys play good on a primetime slate over a Jawan, in my personal opinion. But yeah, so those are our lines. Do you want to make one more? Do you have any thing you want to add to this?
I want you to make a line with double quarterback.
Okay.
Just because I know you didn't, and I don't think you're against doing that. I just think that you probably prefer other strategies. So how would you do a double quarterback build?
I'm gonna try this. It's gonna be a lot of money. 1,061.
And there's really nobody in the 5K range other than the kickers, which is unfortunate because we're just coming off of a slate where we had 3 different guys that we could have picked and chose from.
Right.
$5,000 and $6,000.
I mean, I'm okay with leaving money on the table.
True.
I mean, if I want Kittle and I want Puka, I didn't want to make it the way you did with putting Kittle up there. So I put Puka up there. I think the best way to do this is obviously going with Tyler Johnson and then 6,100 just going down to kicker from here.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you could leave the 900 on the table. This is more. It's not even it doesn't even feel tournament-y to me. Actually, it feels very comfortable with getting our favorite 4 plays. You could even go from Kittle if you wanted to, going up to if not us, obviously we're not going to do this, but you could put Jawan in there. You could put Garindo in there. I would actually say don't put Garindo in there because you do want a receiver if you're going to play Brock Purdy. So George Kittle or Juwan Johnson or Jennings would make the most sense to me, but I don't care if I leave $900. That doesn't hurt me at all.
My last question is pretend that, everybody's out that's questionable.
Okay.
Is Tutu Atwell or Tyler Johnson captain viable to get all these really, really fun, just try to fit 5 of them in?
Yes.
Which one would you like to try to build one with?
Tutu.
All right.
He's my preferred play if I can get to him.
All right, let's Tutu it up.
Oh, he's up here.
You passed him 32 or 39.
Yeah. Okay,
right,
let's start throwing people in there.
Double quarterback.
That guy.
Yeah.
That guy, and that guy. 87. Jeez Louise. Holy crap.
That's exactly what I wanted to see. It was just, can you get just everybody and just pray for a
that's cool.
tournament touchdown. And even going Tyler Johnson, hypothetically, that would probably afford you enough to go with a Kyron over a Jawan Jennings.
Yeah, that's exactly what it does.
Yeah, it does. So,
all right, well,
very, very fun.
I'm not against those in tournaments. Yeah, those are fun plays for tournaments. Getting to those, the highest value on the slate currently is Chris Conley.
Yeah.
Has he played?
He played a ton of snaps, or not, I wouldn't say a ton, but he played 15 snaps, which was, by far the most he's played since week 8. Obviously, he did miss 2 weeks or 1 game due to injury, and then has been sparingly playing since. And then also they were up a lot against Chicago, so I think that had a lot to do with it as well, off the top of my head. So
bunch of zeros.
And on top of that, bunch of zeros. 2 targets in 5 games. I don't know why he's projected over a fantasy point. But maybe they know something we don't know. I would probably say the highest value right now would be Tyler Johnson, which
if
guys,
yeah, if for
I
sure.
mean, he's even showing with Demarcus Robinson playing 2.8 fantasy points because he's actually, I think, gotten a couple targets, if I remember correctly, in recent weeks.
He didn't this last week, but in the weeks before, he had 4 targets against Miami
Okay.
in week 10.
It's been a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he did have a target against New Orleans and Philly. So he is a guy that if other players are out, he does take on those opportunities. He did have a 9.7 game and stuff like that. I'm more confident in playing Tutu, though, just because of the more consistency for sure.
Right.
But yeah, so.
All right. Before we get out of here, I want to hear your favorite prop of the night.
Let's go
for this game because I believe we both hit last week on our prop.
I hit my touchdown prop.
Oh, I missed mine because David Montgomery had the wrong line.
That's
because
right.
He wanted in the second half. He had 4 receptions before he had a carry, and it's just like,
well,
damn it, dude.
Yeah, you had the rushing prop, I believe, and I had Jahmyr Gibbs touchdown prop, and he got that on that receiving touchdown on the 1 yard line.
I will say, me and a very close friend of the show had David Montgomery first time touchdown, and that did hit on multiple lines, which was fun, but we couldn't pair it correctly.
Right.
So that's what ended up not working. Not the Peppers or the Demons. It was the regular props that we screwed up on. So
my favorite prop right now, and I hope it's still here as a demon, is going to be Puka Nacua over half a touchdown because he's the guy. He's been the guy. He had 14 targets last week. He has 5 rushing attempts, 17 opportunities at wide receiver, and 2 touchdowns, I believe, total. Let's see. Yeah, so he had 2 touchdowns last week. I just think he's going to – I don't know why it's a demon. I don't know why it's not even money. So that was by far my favorite thing I saw. And as soon as I saw it, because I was going through them, I was like, they're okay. And then I saw this one. I was like, oh, that's a hammer. I don't really understand it at all. So that's my favorite.
Yeah, that's very, very good value. My favorite prop is probably not even up there because pretend that Demarcus Robinson's out. Obviously, there's no Tutu props. There's no Tyler Johnson props.
Right.
But either of them coming out with props, they're going to be low. Like, I bet you Tyler Johnson will probably be about 17 receiving yards. I bet you Tutu will probably be about 28 to 30.
Yeah.
And I would like the over on both of them. Those would probably be my preferred. But I will, by default, just kind of say my favorite is Deebo Samuel over 10.5 fantasy points. Again, he's hit at least 18 in his last 6 healthy games against the Rams. So if I'm going to call a vibes play, I got to be comfortable enough with him getting 10.5 fantasy points. So that was the one that stuck out to me. But one more thing before we do go, I want to point out is that Patrick Mahomes for his game this week is a free square at half a passing yard. So you got about, 5 days to redeem that.
Yeah, it'd be 4 tomorrow.
And throughout the rest of leading up to Christmas break, there's going to be a lot of promos, discounts, and boosts and stuff like that on both prospects and underdogs. So please be on the lookout for that. But yeah, half a square, free square. Ooh. Use it how you may, use it how you must, but make some money off it. That's my only demand if you do use it.
Absolutely. And right now, if you do play this, it's going to get 3.5 times. So I'm guessing
that's on a flex play.
Yeah. What do we think? 3.5. So yeah, he's giving you 1.25, I guess, on that one. So that's solid money for a guy for Puka, and then also of course Patrick Mahomes at half a yard. It's free. Go get it. I think I hit a 6 pick because I had the Tyreek Hill half a yard recently on Thanksgiving. So use that pick to boost your money, and that's why we're up here at 380 right there. Yeah. Let's pull these off though, and let me stop sharing. There we go. We appreciate you hanging out with us, and there's a few things we have to mention before we do go. We are going to be doing the college football bowl pick'em contest coming up on ESPN. It's going to be the College Football Bowl Mania. That'll be a confidence contest that is going to be all the prizes. So we'll get the top 3 placing will get prizes. It'll be merch for all 3, and then a $25 gift card to NFL Shop for first place. So please get in there and do that. If you go into our bio, it'll be on the Linktree link, so go check that out, and that's going to be a lot of fun. We're also going to do a full video on every single team and pick every game for that.
Yeah, we're actually recording our picks tomorrow, and we'll be releasing that the following day, I believe. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun. That'll be our first video with more than 2 people on. It'll be Dusty, Emery, and then I'll finally get to talk some college football with whatever I think I know about it. So it'll be a whole lot of fun. But yeah, ton of fun with our first contest, and there's going to be many, many more. It looks like there's already about 7 or 8 people in there, and we want you to fill that up as much as possible. Only get one entry, right?
Only one.
Only one
Yeah,
entry.
only one.
It is a confidence ranking as well, so you are able to maneuver around until that exact game locks. So your picks and your confidence can be changing back and forth all the way leading up to that game starting at kickoff. So a whole lot of fun. Please join. And but until then, we will see you guys next time.
Yep. Y'all have a good one.